Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got some updates here today in regards to a pretty big Saturday that's going to be happening in the United States. We've got the main event, which is Donald Trump's huge rally that's going to promote nationalism and patriotism. It's a military rally. Liberals are angry about it. They say, "Oh, it costs like $50 million or whatever." There's videos of them bringing in tanks and other armored vehicles. This is going to be a huge rally. I mean, I don't know the comparison to this military demonstration, but we probably gonna have to go back a while to see something similar to what Trump is doing here on his birthday on June 14th. That's in D.C. Not only are there going to be protests against that in D.C., which, I mean, I don't know how that's going to work considering this is a military parade. How are you going to get in the way of that? But you also have this No Kings communist socialist protest rally that's coordinated through NGOs and through other funding apparatuses. It's happening. There's going to be protests in all 50 states. And you can see this map where it's just every state is littered, especially along the East Coast and West Coast, with these protests. And you would imagine many of these in small cities, pretty meaningless, pretty harmless. But we do have the LA situation, the riots potentially dying down with the Marines being deployed with the National Guard. And by the way, it's funny how that works. And hopefully this continues. It only takes one idiot to do something really bad and then it becomes a national outcry. But my thought process is, well, yeah, the riots are terrible. There's been bad stuff. I'm glad Trump did what he did in terms of bringing the National Guard in, deploying the Marines. Liberals will say, well, no, he made it worse. Well, you have to understand when you're talking about ICE going into liberal states and liberal cities like LA, there's no help from the local police. They're instructed not to help. We just saw the Seattle police, who they're dealing with protests right now. I don't think they've spiraled out of control, but the Seattle police chief came out and said, we're not going to help ICE. So the issue for Trump is if there's no cooperation from the local police and ICE gets littered with, I mean, we saw what was happening on Thursday before the National Guard was brought in to quail the situation. They were getting rocks thrown at their windshield as they were driving. I mean, that could cause, I mean, it's extremely dangerous stuff. And you're not going to identify these people because there's no help from the local law enforcement. So very few of them are going to go to jail, and it's just going to cause more of them to commit crimes with masks on and get away with it. So that's why Trump said, well, I want to bring in the National Guard immediately because we're going to be doing more of these raids. Although, we'll hold on to that because we got what Trump is saying now about possibly calming some of these raids on illegal immigrants that have been in the United States for a while. I'm going to give my opinion on that here in a second. But the point here is we'll see. Right now, what's at the front of everyone's mind here in the United States is the LA riots. And now you've got this military parade in DC where it's a big demonstration. There's going to be protests there. You've also got other protests throughout the country. I will say, and I don't want to jinx this, but normally when they do these events to where they coordinate everything, normally this doesn't result in anything when it's organized. When you've got like a BLM situation, when something happens, like I think something would have to bubble up to where someone would get shot or someone would be killed or something like that, doing something stupid to where the National Guard has to step in. And then you're talking about things, like a George Floyd situation. I'm saying there would have to be a catalyst for things to get really ugly. So hopefully that doesn't happen, but there's more of an opportunity for there to be a catalyst when you've got all of these protests and when you've got a military parade in DC. Not saying anything's going to happen. Let's hope nothing does happen. But we know the riots are in everyone's mind. They're protesting. This is what they are protesting. Well, I don't know about this event. This event's been planned for a while. They just protest Trump because liberals hate Trump. We understand that. But the idea of the riots in LA and some of these other protests that may or may not turn into riots, I've seen even in states like Florida, but especially you look at Chicago, you look at Seattle, Portland, I'm sure the liberal hotbeds, they are protesting illegal immigrants being deported. That's straight up. And they're trying to argue that illegal immigrants should be able to stay in the United States and that, oh, it's a misdemeanor and it's a civil offense and that it's not that bad. And I mean, this is a rule of law in the U.S. We have a border, we have a country, we have citizenship. And if you are not legal, you're going to be deported because you're not legal. And that's just the reality of it. But listen, we're getting stuff from Trump to where, and I'm going to go over this because people, there's a lot of reaction to this. Trump hints that his very aggressive policy on immigration may change after hearing that it negatively is impacting farmers and the hotel and leisure business. The jobs are almost impossible to replace. He says that criminals are then applying for the open jobs. Changes are coming. Our great farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business have been stating that our very aggressive policy on immigration is taking very good long-time workers away from them. So basically what he's saying is, well, these are illegals, but they've been with farms, they've been with hotels for many years. I mean, what this is, if you're Trump, you have to be able to, and look, I understand it is tough, I'm sure, for these farms, but they want to be able to pay people $11 an hour. They can hire, like the idea where these businesses and these corporations say, well, we can't, nobody will do these jobs. Well, they'll do the jobs at a higher pay. You don't want to pay them more. Right. But now they're insinuating, the other thing is, Trump's like, well, the people replacing them are the criminals. He says criminals are then applying for the open jobs. What do you mean criminals are? Well, then criminals in terms of what, like other illegal immigrants are applying for the jobs? Well, why don't you deport them as well? So this, I mean, like we understand this is what happens, and this is kind of the liberal argument, and it's almost the capitalist like billionaire argument. It's a similar thing to H-1B. It's exploitation of labor. And when you're talking about people coming in from other countries on visas, you've got a lot of control over those people. They're going to work for a lot less. And when you're really rich, and I'm not saying, these farmers are very rich or anything like that, but this is a thing to where they're like, nobody's going to work for us. Well, they're not going to work for $11 an hour. They might work for $20 an hour. I'm sure you don't want to pay them $20 an hour. That's the reality of it. So it's the same. It's like a liberal argument, really, when it comes to this. But I mean, the idea of, well, if somebody's been here 15, 20 years and they've, even if they're illegal and they've done well, I mean, you would say, well, there's no exceptions, you should deport them. But on a human level, I can understand that more. But it seems like the issue is they were just not able. I mean, the administration's initial goal was to go after the hardened people that needed to be deported because they committed other crimes outside of just entering the country illegally. Because they say, well, they never, a lot of these illegal immigrants don't commit any crimes. Well, they already committed a crime entering illegally. But but it seemed like it was slowing down on that. So then they just said, let's just start doing raids and actually getting people out. Because it's like, how many people really are these terrible hardened criminals here that, you can put into that box? And then on top of that, how many of them are dumb enough to get caught? I mean, it becomes an issue in terms of the deportation numbers are going to be really lacking if you lax this. You would wonder. I mean, I do wonder how many actually work on farms that have worked there for 10, 12, 15 years. I could understand Trump's getting told this from farmers, but it's one of those things to where, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to pay people more. You're going to have to pay American citizens more. And they say, well, they will not do the jobs. Well, they'll do them at $20 an hour, not $11 an hour, at $25 an hour, not $11 an hour. And I do think there is something to the United States being a first world country and a lot of our citizens growing up. Things are easier. That's what happens to a society. It gets easier. You don't want to do work. You don't want to do manual labor. A lot of the citizens don't want to do any of that nowadays. And that comes to the whole idea of robots mainly replacing things when it comes to farming and things of that nature. But they're also talking about hotels and stuff like that. So we'll see with this. But this is like, we finally do the raids, and then he immediately says, well, we're going to hold back on them. Okay. And now Newsom gets to do a victory lap over this. Not that I care, but I saw Newsom, of course, do a tweet about this. So there's that. You also do have Trump praising Elon Musk. Wow. Trump and Elon are back together. Yeah, Elon came out a few days ago and put out a tweet where he apologized to Trump. I think Trump and Elon kind of need each other, but Elon, there's other stuff with Elon to where he's just too sporadic. He's bipolar. He can't, you can't really manage Elon in terms of him being part of the administration to a significant level. It also came out that Musk was really irate with Trump in terms of Musk was trying to conjoin within meetings that he was not supposed to be in. He didn't have the security clearance, and the head of NASA, he had an issue with Trump because Trump said, I'm not gonna I'm not going to recommend this person because he has donated to several Democrat causes. And so I don't know. I mean, Musk is the richest man in the world, at least on paper, at least publicly. And so he's someone that you want to be in your corner when it comes to the 2026 midterms with money in 2028. So it is what it is. And it doesn't really surprise me. But with Musk and Trump, I mean, there's gonna be some issues in terms of Trump really trusting Musk, if we're being honest here, because the insinuation about the Epstein stuff. And by the way, Trump really still hasn't commented on that, and I don't know why. Like, I've gone over it so many times in terms of that. We know that Trump is not significantly involved with Epstein. It would make no sense. Democrats would have 100% used that when they had executive control. But it's like, why not say something about that makes you look more guilty? And you could say, well, they're getting everything together. But the Epstein stuff is really just, none of it lines up. Patel says there's nothing there. Bondi, 2 weeks before Patel says that, says, oh, we've got all the videos. I mean, maybe they're alluding to two different things, but that kind of seems like, I don't know. But when it comes to Trump and Musk, yeah, they're getting back together. There it is right there. Musk spoke to Trump over the phone late Monday night. Musk later posted his statement of regret. I regret some of my posts made about Trump from last week. They went too far. Okay, so that's basically that. And again, it doesn't surprise me. But there's no way Trump is going to be able to trust Musk after. I mean, it's just like, dude. The thing is I wasn't even taking the Elon pouting session seriously when he was going against the bill. And then he's like, oh, he brings up the Epstein stuff. He just goes from 0 to 100 out of nowhere. He's very unpredictable. But yeah, we'll see what happens with these protests. This is going to be, it could be a big Saturday. Hopefully nothing bad happens, but it does seem like the fever, the national temperature is what they call it. It's raised a little bit in the United States. And so all it takes is one event, and you hope that event doesn't happen to trigger something bigger. Now, I don't think that event has happened. And the LA riots, there's not that marquee thing that's happened to where somebody dies or somebody gets shot at or something like that. There's been violence. There's certainly riots, and the liberals always try and downplay them. It's Groundhog Day. It's the same thing every time. Whenever there's riots, they say, no, it's just a few people. And so it is what it is. But, most of these are protests, I believe, in smaller cities. So they're going to be a lot smaller. But there could be some bigger protests in D.C. with the parade. But listen, the hope is that nothing really happens, and the National Guard being deployed and the Marines, they bring the temperature down in LA and they take control of it to where things don't get out of hand too much. So I think that's the hope. But either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you like it down below. Also follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.